a checker, eh?
How's it going? Welcome back to the Sharp Hand Path. I'm your host, Jesse Morgan. And I know it's been a bit since the last video on this channel. My apologies. I've been doing some training with the Iron Leaf MMA dojang the last month or two. And I even did a one-off practice session with the Oshawa Budo Club in July. A lot of fun. A couple of people that train with Master Yamanaka came in and did some cool forms and techniques and activities with us. Really love that. Got another one coming next Monday at the Oshawa Budo Club, and then in September we'll be starting back up again for full proper sessions, and I'll be doing my first full year as a yellow belt in Goju Ryu then. So yeah, I got a lot of actual martial arts things going on in my real life and coming up soon as well. My oldest son will be joining me for Oshawa Budo Club doing some Goju Ryu karate, the real Miyagi-Do. So that'll be cool to see if they stick with it and how they enjoy it. I know Sensei Dave is really excited for my son to join. So yeah, looking forward to all that. But why are we here today? Well, we're coming back here today with a ranking of the films from the Shawscope here. I got this in the mail about a month or so ago, and I did an unboxing for you guys here, so hopefully you enjoyed that. I know it's probably a couple of years too late. All the hype's probably died down from Shawscope Volume 1, but it was exciting for me, and I was happy to get it in and enjoy what is mostly my first foray into a bunch of these Shaw Brothers films. So yeah, I actually got to watch all of these and check them out. A few of them I've watched a couple of times just because I either wasn't paying attention or I was confused or just didn't have time to watch from beginning to end, and I wanted to make sure I did that. Needless to say, I've had some time to spend with the Shawscope Volume 1 and all the movies within, and now I decided before I get Shawscope Volume 2 or my next box set, I would rank the movies in here from 12 being the least favorite to number 1 being my obvious favorite movie out of the bunch here. As I go up the list, it'll probably be quite obvious which one I like the most and is my favorite out of here. It's a lot of people's favorite, so there's a little bit of a spoiler. So let's get started, shall we? Shawscope Volume 1 films ranked, starting off with number 12, and that is the Mighty Peking Man. I couldn't find any reason why the Arrow Video people would put the Mighty Peking Man in here, other than just the fact that a bunch of nerds would want to see Evelyn Kraft running around scantily clad in the jungle, and then later on in the city still wearing her animal skins because she refused to wear the outfit that the main dude picked out for her. So yeah, Evelyn Kraft plays Awe, which is basically a Jane character from Tarzan. This movie didn't have any kung fu. It was basically a King Kong ripoff. The effects were horrible. It was basically this dude in a monkey suit beating up plastic toy cars and tanks and stuff like that. The acting was really bad, and there was just super duper obvious green screen in the background of the Peking Man doing things and then crowds running away, or vice versa. It was the Peking Man and then the crowd and toy cars and stuff in front were the green screen, and the only thing practical that was with the Peking Man and the actors was this giant hand that came in every now and then and picked them up and took them to a different place. That is why that's the bottom of the list here at number 12 out of 12. Although it was still enjoyable enough. Again, the only reason I could see why they'd want to put it in here is so that a bunch of kung fu nerds could ogle Evelyn Kraft and the many, many nip slips that happens throughout this, because now that you can see it in HD, you can tell she pops out a couple of times. I'm sure in standard definition you can't notice because the skin color and the animal skin is pretty close, but in HD you can see all of the slips. All right, moving on to my next lowest film in here. That was number 11, Shaolin Temple. And here we go. There's what the artwork looks like on the inside of the booklet here. So the Shaolin Temple has Alexander Fu Shang and a couple of Venom mobs, as you guys know. Philip Kwok, Gordon Liu, which is pretty cool. He's a pretty big Shaw Brothers actor. Lu Fang, Pai Wei, and you rarely ever see Pai Wei in a lot of these films as one of the Venom mobs. So it's kind of cool that he's in this wherever he ended up showing up. There's Chang Shang, Lo Mang. T Lung was in this apparently too. I know he's a big favorite among a lot of the Shaw Brothers fans. And of course, Wang Lung Wei, who seems to be in every one of these films. And my favorite character of the Venom mob, Philip Kwok, spoiler alert again, sorry, dies in a really ridiculous way. I'm not going to say how he dies, but there is no need for him to die that way. I'm sure he could have fought his way out of the situation and maybe lived with a few bumps and bruises and maybe some cuts. But yeah, I like Philip Kwok, so it was unfortunate to see that he died and end in the way he did. So Shaolin Temple is at 11 because it is the slowest film in the Shawscope Volume 1 here. It's kind of lackluster in the training. I know that the Shaolin Temple training is supposed to be pretty cool and neat and not super duper intuitive all the time with why what you're doing is helping you learn Kung Fu, but it was pretty darn basic. I feel like Volume 2 of the Shawscope is going to have a way better Shaolin training sequence with the 36 Chambers of Shaolin trilogy in there. So that's another reason why it's down so low. The first time I watched it, I believe it was on YouTube or something. It was pretty poor quality. It failed to capture my attention. It was also slightly confusing as to who was fighting who at the end and why they were fighting each other. But again, after a second or third watch, I figured it out that it's the government that doesn't want the Shaolin people training people in martial arts, and there's traitors kind of sneaking into the Shaolin Temple and avoiding being captured by the army and stuff. So they come in and start a big war and take them out and everything like that, and that's why everyone's fighting each other. But it took a couple of watches to be like, oh, that's why everyone and their mother is here to fight each other. So that was my experience with the first watch of it. And another reason why it's so low on this list is because it was a really huge waste of the Venom mob. Like, I'm sure they were in here, and I do remember seeing them pop up once or twice, but I feel like the Venom mob was sorely wasted and given very teeny amounts of screen time in the Shaolin Temple. So yeah, Shaolin Temple is number 11. Moving right along though, because we've got 10 other movies to do. So the next one is 5 Shaolin Masters. I've watched a couple other people's reviews and kind of rankings. I think that there's 1 or 2 people that also ranked this as well. I think that they gave 5 Shaolin Masters a pretty low ranking as well. So at least I'm not out of the loop when it comes to this genre of film. I just felt as the second slowest film of the bunch here. The training was also lackluster. It didn't really hit me with, oh wow, that's really, really cool, which a lot of the other ones do. And the one-on-one fights, the 5 Shaolin Masters versus the 5 villains in this wasn't all that intriguing. I know the guy with the hatchet tip on the rope kind of gets like a big thing, and he's like, woo, look how crazy and cool this is, but I don't know, it didn't really intrigue me that much. Another thing with this is that it also had Alexander Fu Shang. Same with Shaolin Temple. I'm not a big fan of Alexander Fu Shang, even though he does kind of bring it up a bit acting wise and more serious in Chinatown Kid, which we're going to talk about later. But even then, I still don't find I really enjoy his character. I don't really like his look. And I also don't like the fact that a lot of people compare him to Jackie Chan as if he was supposed to be the next Jackie Chan or his equal or similar. I don't think so. Jackie Chan is Jackie Chan. He's not someone I take seriously. I'm just not drawn to him as a kung fu actor in these films. There's a lot more that I'm excited to hear is in a film now that I've seen this pack. Wang Lung Wei is also in this. Again, he's in a lot of these films. And Gordon Liu makes a small appearance in this. I think he gets killed at some point, if this is the right movie I'm thinking of. And T Lung is in this. Again, I know a lot of you kung fu nerds love T Lung. Maybe if I watch a few more of these Shaw Brothers films, I'll also enjoy T Lung. None of the fights were memorable for me. It was fairly slow. A lot of the people that watch this say it's fairly disjointed and all over the place and doesn't really focus on one main character. It jumps back and forth between a lot of them, and they find that confusing. I don't really find find having more than one main character confusing, but it definitely helps solidify and mainstream a story if you follow at least minimum of two main characters, like the main bad guy story, or the main good guy story, or the main good guy story and a sidekick story, or maybe an auxiliary character, but not like a whole giant cast of backstories. It takes a real special writer and director to pull that off correctly, I think. So that's why 5 Shaolin Masters is 10 out of 12 for me. All right, and moving on, we just talked about it. At the 9th spot is Chinatown Kid. Alexander Fusheng leading this one again, but I will say that he does play a slightly better role. He does a slightly better acting job in this. I like his slightly less comedic, jovial, childish type of acting in this and character. He's more honorable in this one and less of a joke, although not by much, because he does end up going and working for a gang, but I feel like it's the least of two evils. Also, another thing that brings down Chinatown Kid for me is I'm not really so far a fan of more modern or contemporary timepieced kung fu films from Shaw Brothers. It was a little too like Shaw Brothers' version of Scarface. There's already Scarface. You don't need to do another version of it. So besides that, the upsides though to this is that it has quite a few of the Venom mob in it. Lo Mang is in it. Philip Kwok, he plays the White Dragon leader. So that's cool. He plays the leader of the White Dragon clan in this. And I believe Alexander Fusheng ends up taking his side over Lo Mang and the other guy's side. Sun Shen's in this. Lu Fang is in this. Cheng Shang is in this. I'm not really a big fan of Cheng Shang. He's another one of those not goofy sidekick comedic roles, at least not in this one, but he has a tendency of doing the kind of comedic, slightly goofy role, but not quite as much as Alexander Fusheng does. So, I know he's like a Venom baby or whatever. I'm not sure who the Venom babies are. Someone please explain that one to me. I feel like the Venom babies are a sub-tier, like a second-tier casting who play to the main Venom mob. So is that how the baby Venoms work? Are they just second-tier casting compared to the Venom mob when Venom mobs are in a movie? Or is there like specific reasons that certain actors are deemed Venom babies? That'd be great to know. That rambling out of the way, it's at number 9. Let me know if you agree with that ranking or if you feel like Chinatown Kid is the next best thing since sliced bread and it should have been way higher. But we're going to move on. And in the 8th spot is Challenge of the Masters. In this is Gordon Liu as Wong Fei Hung. I like the Wong Fei Hung series of films, whether they're connected or not. I just like the Wong Fei Hung character. He's a really cool kind of folklore-ish master of kung fu, and the fact that Gordon Liu is playing him is pretty spot on. I think Gordon Liu is a great Wong Fei Hung, and in Challenge of the Masters, he's playing a Wong Fei Hung that hasn't been trained yet. He's kind of looking to be trained, but his father won't do it for some reason. And he's kind of getting picked on by one of the seniors of one of the other schools. He wants to get revenge for one of his fellow schoolmates getting killed, I believe. The beginning of this movie is escaping me right now, unfortunately. There's some sort of sports game going on, and there's a bunch of rival schools that are trying to win this competition in order to get funding for their school so they can continue getting taught. And a couple of the other schools are doing kind of devious, underhanded type of things in order to win and get more points for their thing. And someone ends up getting killed. I'm pretty sure that's why Gordon Liu's character as Wong Fei Hung wants to learn Kung Fu and get redemption for this character. He ends up going and seeking training from Shen Quan Tai, who is one of my favorite non-Venom mob actors now. He is playing a character called Lu Ah Tsai, but I feel like it's basically a young Pai Mei, even though they don't say he's Pai Mei in this at all, and there's no connection to him being like a killer priest or anything like that. But come on, you look at him and he's like clearly a younger Pai Mei without the beard. He's got some frosted tips going on. He's got some salt and pepper going on in his mustache. He just doesn't have the beard yet. He's not like a 70-year-old Pai Mei. He's probably around 50-year-old Pai Mei at this point. But again, he's not actually Pai Mei in this, but I feel like the movie would have been better if he was. And again, in Challenge of the Masters, I feel like Gordon Liu was utilized far better than the other films that we've just previously mentioned. The training sequences in this is excellent. Him training with Chen Quan Tai is fantastic. I like the bow stuff because we've kind of been learning bow stuff in Iron Leaf recently, as well as some sword stuff. I recently got a boken. I'd show you, but it's in the van because we've been doing weapons training and I've just been needing to keep it in there so that it's easy access. But yeah, kind of cool that that's in there. And he ends up learning a really good lesson throughout the ending of this movie. It's you don't need to kill someone, and in fact, if you show mercy, the enemy might have a new opinion of you and may turn a new leaf. And he kind of uses that a couple of times for different characters, and it ends up turning out pretty favorably in his, well, favor. So yeah, all in all, pretty good movie. Not as slow as some of the ones before it, but not as cool or as great as the next that I'm going to be mentioning. So that's why it's in the 8th spot here. Following that up in the 7th spot is Executioners from Shaolin. It's got Lo Lei as Pai Mei in this one actually, and it's got Chen Quan Tai in this as the main protagonist, Gordon Liu, and Chen Quan Tai's wife in this, Lily Lee. So yeah, really stoked to have my first official Pai Mei film in my movie collection, minus Kill Bill Volume 2, of course. Cool training sequences are in this one. Some great fights against Pai Mei obviously happen in this. And there's some nice family training scenes, albeit kind of a tragic middle part of the film. The really cool thing about this is if you've seen The Boxer from Shantung and you've seen The King Boxer, this movie is basically The Boxer from Shantung versus King Boxer, because you got Chen Quan Tai versus Lo Lei. Main stars of both those films coming to a head in this is really fun and definitely enjoyable. And you would think, since I'm such a fan of Pai Mei, and I do like Lo Lei and Chen Quan Tai, and it's even got Gordon Liu in it, that it would be higher on this list. But it is kind of just another in the stack of a million Shaolin movies. I find that Shaw Brothers has so many movies with the title Shaolin in it, and a bunch of plots revolving around the Shaolin Temple, etc., etc. It kind of makes it less special, even though this is actually a really, really good film. So yeah, Executioners from Shaolin is number 7, and that is the bottom 6 films in this ranking. Let's go on to the top 6. At number 6 with Dirty Ho. I wasn't actually expecting to like this one as much as I did. I heard about the knot fight scenes using teacups and wine mugs and antiques and stuff, and when I first heard about that, I'm like, that's ridiculous, that's too silly and cheesy for me, I'm not gonna like it. But when it finally comes time to seeing these things and the build up to these fights and a little bit more backstory and a little more context, it's actually pretty neat. So in this, you have Gordon Liu as Master Wang or Mr. Wang, and then you have Wang Yu as Ho, and then you have Lo Lei as General Liang, and again, bet you'll never guess, Wang Lung Wei as Fan Ching Kong. So yeah, a lot of familiar faces here. The fight scenes in this is really, really good. The last fight scene though, the final fight with Mr. Wang and Ho versus the kind of palace guards that are trying to stop Mr. Wang from getting in and bowing in with the rest of his brothers for the king. Them fighting together and using the pole against the guards and the giant sword staff. It was crazy. That's why I brought it up higher. And the last really cool thing about Dirty Ho was the fight scene using the woman from the restaurant that he's claiming as this crazy assassin to stop Ho from fighting him, Mr. Wang and Gordon Liu. They end up using this waitress basically as a front for an assassin because he doesn't want to show Ho that he actually knows Kung Fu for some reason and give away his secrets, I guess. And he's pushing her arm out to punch, and he's flipping her legs around to kick and block, and then he ends up flicking a sword or something into her hand and getting her to wave it around and block Ho's attacks. It's Probably one of the coolest using someone as a human dummy fights. That choreography was really, really neat. And obviously the woman that was doing those obviously would have to know a bit of choreography and fighting as well. So I haven't really seen too much of that. I think I've seen Jackie Chan do it once or twice, but like for like a couple of seconds or like 3 or 4 moves, and then they're moving on to the next scene. Whereas this is like a full like 3 or 4 minute scene of Gordon Liu using this waitress as a false assassin and pushing her hands and feet and sword into the right place to block and kick and attack. So yeah, that was really interesting, and that's what brought Dirty Ho up from the lower 6 films to the higher 6 films at number 6. All right, moving on to the 5th place. That is Boxer from Shantung. Right here, there's the art. This film was a great way to get introduced to Chen Quan Tai, who plays Ma Young Chen. Once you see him in this, you'll never forget that smile and face. You'll start recognizing him everywhere else in the Shaw Brothers filmography, and he's definitely risen to one of the highest kung fu film actors besides the Venom mob that I look forward to watching when I see his name pop up in the cast of these films. And of course, the Boxer from Shantung has that famous final hatchet massacre fight scene. It's bloody, it's crazy, it's wild. You'd never think a dude could survive with an axe in him for as long as his character does. It's slightly unbelievable, but also pretty badass. I also enjoy the fact that his character starts off kind of like as a nobody, but a skilled martial artist, and slowly starts building clout and repertoire with his city by dismantling the order of all the gangs that are around here and slowly taking over as the head boss of kind of the racketeering thing. But then as he's getting up there in power, he starts realizing he doesn't really want to be a bad guy. So he's kind of giving back to the lower class people and the poor people, and he's giving people a little bit more time and leeway when it comes to paying their protection fees and things like that. He's still kind of doing racketeering and gangster stuff, but he's doing it in the nicest way possible, and he's also eliminating the absolute a-holes in the scene as well. So you're really, really rooting for him. By the end of this film, it's a shame ends the way it does. Really, really good. You're going to go into this not quite knowing how everything goes down, and all these reasons are definitely why this is at number 5 out of 12 for my ranking list here. All right, moving right up to number 4, we are at Crippled Avengers, and that is right alongside the 5 Venoms in the set. And for some reason, this movie is marketed 9 times out of 10 as a sequel to the 5 Deadly Venoms. And let me tell you, it is definitely not a sequel to the 5 Deadly Venoms. The Venom mob in here do appear, and that's definitely a bonus. And a lot of the things they do and the training sequences is really cool. And it's nice to see their faces all pop up in here again. Minus Pai Wei, of course. You also get Chen Quan Tai in here. And again, Wang Lung Wei. His mustache is infamous in this box set, let me tell you. So yeah, not a sequel to 5 Deadly Venoms, and only has 4 out of the 5 Venom mob in here, unless you count Chang Shang. I feel like he's a baby Venom. Maybe I'm using that term incorrectly, but yeah, he's in here too. So there's lots of actors to look forward to from the Venom mob and other Shaw Brothers films in this. One thing I will say that I'm not a big fan of in the Crippled Avengers, besides not actually being a sequel to 5 Deadly Venoms, is the kind of forced narrative that this movie uses to create the Crippled Avengers in here, and how every one of the Crippled Avengers gets crippled in the first place. It's kind of forced, and it's kind of heavy-handed, and I'm not a fan of how they become crippled. So that's a thing. But once you get past how the story goes, these people have to get crippled in order to have the movie go forward. Once you get past how that happens and the character that does it and why the character that does it, they start learning how to do their kung fu again and adapt to their handicaps. That part's really, really cool, especially Philip Kwok, him learning kung fu again and using the other senses in order to get over what part of his cripple is pretty cool. So I'm glad that Philip Kwok has a pretty badass part in here, and his relationship with Lo Mang's character is kind of cute and kind of nice. I enjoy that. The other thing that's kind of a downer in here, though, is how absolutely silly and goofy Chang Sheng's character is. Again, he's kind of like this goofy childish, immature character. I know his handicap is that's why he's extra in this, but it's kind of annoying. I don't like his character to begin with, and then you add that handicap that they give him in here, and it's just too much. It's just like kind of cringy. Not a fan of it. The only positive thing I can say though about Chang Shang is his flipping at acrobatics is insane. This kid loves to flip around, do spins in the air, land on things, balance on shit that you never thought he'd be able to balance on. I mean, he's probably using wires, but if that's what the character could do and he's doing that in the movie, like legit, then holy crap, that is some skill. That's the only gripes I can really give about the Crippled Avengers. So other than that, it's stacked full of awesome actors, and the training sequences and the fighting is great. Don't go into Crippled Avengers thinking it's a sequel to Five Deadly Venoms. It's not, but it still deserves its 4th place up here in the ranking. Let's get on to the top 3. All right, you will probably agree with me this being up so high, and it is King Boxer at number 3, aka Five Fingers of Death. So yeah, this needed to be up high. This was a really classic fucking Shaw Brothers film, and apparently King Boxer was the reason why a lot of kung fu films ended up making their way into North America, and a lot more people got into kung fu films thanks to King Boxer, and apparently paved the way for Enter the Dragon, aka Bruce Lee's best film, to go into this era and start making more people get into chop sake films. I hate that term, but yeah. So King Boxer, classic, paved the way for so many other kung fu films. And if you've never seen Lo Lei before and you're not used to his Pai Mei appearances, this would be a great introduction to Lo Lei's character. In this, he's Chow Chi Hao. This is pretty much a Shaw Brothers Mortal Kombat years before Mortal Kombat ever came out. The main character is training to become the best martial artist there is, and he can prove it by entering this tournament and beating all of the other competitors that are doing a bunch of different martial arts like Taekwondo, karate, samurai stuff, etc, etc, etc. If he wins, he becomes the best martial artist and saves Earthrealm for the next 1,000 years. Wait. So yeah, really, really cool. Apparently there's a Blink and You Miss It cameo by Bolo Young too. So yeah, that fucking jacked dude from Bloodsport, he's apparently in this for a few seconds. I don't remember seeing him, but he's in it. And then there's Wang Ping, who plays Sung Ying Ying. Gorgeous oriental woman. She does a great job for what she's in there for. Definitely needs more films with her in it. And the actress from the next movie that we're going to be talking about. Another thing that makes this so good is the storyline, obviously, the dramatic stakes that are involved. Pretty good character arc of someone going through a tragedy of injury and then having to work themselves back up to be good enough to be able to compete. There's a story that kind of has that going on, and there's also a bit of jealousy and betrayal going on between some of the people in his dojo that he's working with, not liking him because he's so good and they want his spot in the tournament, I think. And then there you got the opposite dojo sending people to try and recruit him, but he's like, nah, I'm good, I'm gonna do it on my own. And that's why they kind of go after him, because they want the prize. Okay, second spot, Heroes of the East. This one was one I was saving to last to watch. I watched Peking Man before this and Dirty Ho before this, because I was like, this is either going to be amazing or it's going to be kind of bad. So I was kind of saving it for last because I didn't know how I was going to feel about this. Here it is on the Shawscope here. I like that artwork. Would be cool to get a poster of that. So Heroes of the East is this kind of really cute story of Gordon Liu, aka Master Otto, and his wife Yumika Koda, played by Yuka Mizuno, a just gorgeous oriental Japanese woman. Their husband and wife dynamic, once they actually meet and he agrees to marry her, because he's kind of hesitant at first, but once they meet and get together and start talking and things start rolling, their relationship is one that a martial artist could only dream of. They got this funny, quirky back and forth. They kind of have an admiration for each other's skills and styles, and they kind of have this slightly unhealthy competitive fire for who's the better martial artist and whose style is better and whose weapons are cooler. They're kind of going back and forth and showing their skills to each other, playing around, having fun, kind of getting a little rough sometimes. And it's funny, the servant kind of accuses him of beating his wife, but they're just training. But I love it. I love the dynamic of this. I wish this could have been the entire film of them going back and forth and challenging each other's styles and having fun and going back and forth, maybe getting into a little bit of trouble with the landlord or master of the house, or the fathers or whatever, or maybe going outside and getting in trouble with the law and bickering back and forth. And so that would have been cool. I would have loved that as a film. But it takes a turn to where they kind of slightly turn on each other a bit, and Yuka Mizuno's character goes off back to Japan and kind of is like, nah, I'm being disrespected, my style's better, but my husband's being a jerk about it. I'm going to be upset over here for a while. Gordon Liu kind of gets upset and misses his wife, and he writes her a letter going, if you return, feel free to bring any of your styles or weapons and I will duel you anytime, and if you win, whatever. And her sensei down there, who actually wants to marry her but obviously can't because she's married to Gordon Liu's character, Master Otto, he sees the letter and he's like, what's this? And then he reads it and then he gets super pissed off and he takes it as a challenge to the Japanese style in general, not just to her. And he takes it back to his master at his dojo and he shows him, and all of the black belts from a couple of different styles go, I'll challenge him, and the other guy's like, I'll challenge him, and all of the black belts in there and the masters of different weapons and styles take up arms for Japan and come down to China and Master Otto's home and go, we challenge you because you sent this letter. Obviously Master Otto's like, guys, this was just like a fun ploy for the wife to come home and have fun and you know, show off her talents and duel me. This wasn't a challenge to you. But they're like, you challenge one Japanese, you challenge all Japanese. And so they just won't let him slough it off or get away with it. And they each challenge him one style per day. And he has to fight off different swordsmen, spearmen, judo guys, sai guys. Ninjutsu is the final battle, and it's a fucking wild one. You're just like, okay. And I audibly laughed out loud when I heard Japanese crab style, and he starts doing this across the screen. I'm like, no fucking way. That's hilarious. And it's almost cringe, but at the same time it's so funny and unexpected that I'm like, okay, you know, you'll get a pass for this because I know that style probably actually exists and they're taking it super duper seriously. But yeah, I almost died when I saw that shit happening. And he does it a lot, and he does it a few different ways, and it tickled my sense of humor in the right spot. I loved it, even though it was so bad. They end up resolving it at the end. There's a little bit of a scuffle and differences of opinion between one or two different characters, but he ends up resolving it, and they just kind of end it on a way where it's like, oh, okay, I definitely need to see a sequel to this with the wife and him and still competing and getting into mischief. I feel like that could be a thing, but since Shaw Brothers is not really a thing anymore, at least as far as I'm aware, and probably not doing any more Kung Fu films, we'll probably never see a sequel to Heroes of the East, unless there is one. If there is a sequel, let me know, because that would be sick to see. But yeah, that's why it's at the second spot here. You could probably guess now. Number one is the 5 Deadly Venoms. Here it is here. And the 5 Deadly Venoms is obviously number one. This was my first foray into the Shaw Brothers films, minus Martial Arts of Shaolin with Jet Li. I think I have that in my collection somewhere. So technically I've seen a Shaw Brothers film, but it's more of a Jet Li film than like really a Shaw Brothers feeling type of film. So yeah, I consider the 5 Deadly Venoms my popped cherry of the Shaw Brothers films. It introduced me to all the Venoms mob, Chang Shang being the baby Venom, but then Lo Mang, Lu Fang, Sun Chen, Pai Wei, Philip Kwok, and of course, the Mustache Man had to be in here, Wang Lung Wei. This film was great. I've seen it at least 2 or 3 times now. It just has awesome characters, it has awesome lore. The masks are cool. The different styles are pretty sick. The mystery of who is each of the characters, of the centipede, the scorpion, the toad, the lizard, the snake. Really cool characters and lore. The fight scenes are pretty good. And then the last fight is extraordinarily good as well. Some of the characters get off in pretty messed up ways. I feel fairly bad for one character in particular. Ooh, that would suck. The intrigue and the storyline and everything about this film, I loved everything about it. Definitely deserves the #1 spot in Shawscope Volume 1 for me. It introduced me to Shaw Brothers in general, but the Venom mob. I love seeing the Venom mobs pop up in all these other different movies. My favorite of the Venom mob has to be Philip Kwok. And the reason why I like Philip Kwok so much, because as soon as I saw him on screen, I had to do a double take because he looks exactly like my Iron Leaf Shifu spinner. Especially when they get that 5 o'clock shadow coming in. He just has a very oriental version of Shifu Spinner's look, in my opinion. So it's pretty funny. Every time I see Philip Kwok pop up somewhere, I'm like, hey, it's Shifu. So that will always be my favorite of the Venom mob for that reason. But second is probably Lo Mang. I like seeing his character. He's very, very interesting. And the last comment I'll have about the Venom mob is, I feel like Lu Fang needs to keep that beard, because without that beard, he and Sun Chen look way too similar. I have to like micro analyze their features in order to figure out which Venom this one is when I see them outside of this film. So yeah, Lu Fang should have kept the beard. It makes things way much easier, and he looks more of a badass with that beard. If they're trying to play off the baby-faced good guy look, Sun Chen definitely pulls it off a little bit better. He's got a slightly more baby face, slightly more attractive look than Lu Fang, and Lu Fang just looks like a badass with the beard, so I feel like he should have kept it. Anywho, that's my ranking of all of the films that are in the Shawscope Volume 1. Looking forward to getting Shawscope Volume 2 when I can. Thanks for watching this ranking. I've been your host, Jesse Morgan. Shei, Na Shin, and one on.
We should run. We should hide. We should kick their butts.